Welcome to another installment of Mr. Shucks Flipped ELA. Today we'll be taking a look at the short story Bargain by A.B. Guthrie, which starts on page 230 of your textbook. We'll begin with today's flipped lesson by adding some cool words to our cool word list on our Talking to the Text paper. Remember that the cool words are words that are not necessarily associated with the study of English literature, but they are words that are kind of interesting and that we should know. The first cool word that we are adding to our cool word list is justice. Justice is doing what is right and fair according to the law. The next cool word that we are going to add is revenge. Revenge is when you try to get back at someone for something that they did. Revenge does not involve the law. It is more like taking the law into your own hands. Now that we have our cool words written down with definitions, we're going to move forward to a journal entry for today. I want you to take 5 to 10 minutes of writing time to write about the similarities and the differences between justice and revenge. Think about a time when either you sought revenge or felt like justice was served. Describe this situation and how everything worked out in the end. Now that we have our journal entries finished, we're going to turn back to page 230 in the textbook to take a look at the reading skills and strategies section. If you do not have your textbook, just listen along at this time. Drawing conclusions, looking for evidence. Writers don't come right out and tell you everything you want to know about their characters. You are supposed to take part in the story. You draw your own conclusions about the characters you meet in a story using information you find in the text and your own life experiences. To draw conclusions about the characters in a story, use these strategies. Watch what the characters say and do. Watch the way other characters respond to them, and think about how they are like people you know in real life. At this point, we're going to turn back to our Talking to the Text paper, and we are going to add a few academic words for this particular story. Some of the words are going to be review. So if you feel like you know these words inside and out, I would just recommend copying down the word itself and not necessarily the definition. There will be one new academic word for this story. The first review word is characterization. Remember that characterization is simply the way that a writer creates characters. Remember that there are two types of characterization. The first type is direct characterization. If a writer is using direct characterization, they directly state to us, the readers, what the character is like. The other type of characterization is indirect characterization. When an author uses indirect characterization, the reader has to figure out the character's personality. We make inferences and we draw conclusions based on what the characters say, how they act, and how other characters respond to them. The next academic word is first person point of view. Again, this is another review word. First person point of view is when the narrator is a character in the story and narration uses first person pronouns. Here is our new academic word for this particular story, historical fiction. Historical fiction is fictional writing that is set in the past with a setting that is historically accurate. The setting is very important for historical fiction. You might have a place that isn't exactly real, but it is accurate to history. Now that we have our academic words added, we are going to turn back to page 230 in the textbook to take a look at the background section, which gives us a little bit more information about historical fiction and the setting for the story Bargain. This story takes place in Moondance, a town where we have all been in our imaginations. You will recognize Moondance from TV and movie westerns, its muddy street, its saloon, and its general store. This story is a kind of historical fiction. Setting is important in historical fiction. This writer wants you to feel what it was like to live in a rough frontier town. If you took away Moondance and all the historical details, you'd have a completely different story. So keep that in mind as we get into this particular story. The setting of Moondance isn't necessarily a real town, but it is historically accurate to the time period in which our story is taking place. Now that we have our background information discussed, we are going to turn to page 240 in the textbook, where we will find out a little bit of information about our author, A.B. Guthrie. A.B. Guthrie wanted to portray the West as it was, not create myths about it. He said, "I want to talk about real people in real times. For every Wyatt Earp or Billy the Kid, there was 1,000 of people just trying to get along." Most readers agree that Guthrie succeeded. His most famous work, the trilogy about the opening of the West, is noted for its historical accuracy. Guthrie also wrote the screenplay for Shane, a famous movie about a Western gunslinger who takes justice into his own hands to save a family and pays a bitter price. Albert Bertram Guthrie Jr. grew up in the little town of Choctaw, Montana. After graduating from college, he traveled extensively and worked at various jobs, ranching in Sonora, Mexico, selling groceries in California, working as a census taker in Montana, laboring at his uncle's feed mill in Attica, New York. After the mill burned down, he finally settled in Lexington, Kentucky, where he worked at a newspaper for more than 20 years. Guthrie became a fiction writer when he took time out of his newspaper job to visit his sick mother. During his visit, he had time to write his first novel, Murders at Moondance. In this book, he introduces the setting of Bargain and many of his other short stories. Thinking back to his childhood in Montana early in the century, Guthrie said that the best Christmas gift he ever got was a dictionary, and that his warmest memories were the arguments he used to have with his family about the meanings of words. In talking about choosing words in his own writing, Guthrie said, "For me, writing is a slow and painful business. It demands concentration and search and presents the obstacles of dissatisfaction with what could be said better. And there's no immediate reward in putting words on paper. The reward, great but fugitive, is in having written, in having found the word, the line, the paragraph, the chapter that is as good as ever you can make it. I spent a full day on one line of dialogue and knocked off satisfied." Guthrie's novels about the opening of the West are The Big Sky, The Way West, which won the Pulitzer Prize, and These 1,000 Hills. Now that we know a little bit about our author, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow my page.